Hi everyone, welcome to another video tutorial from gcsemathsguide.com. Today we're going to focus on multiplying fractions and mixed numbers. I've made a slight mistake here. Here it's supposed to be fraction and you know what I mean. Yeah. Now this topic is going to go, it's graded from G all the way up to a C grade. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at a couple of examples. The first example that we're going to work for today is, let's say for instance you had something like a 1/5 of, let's say 25. Alright, so how would you work this out? The first thing you need to realize that whenever you have the word off, it means times. Okay? So essentially it means that I want to work at 1/5 times 25. And the easiest way to do that is by looking at the denominator, the bottom number, which is the 5, and ask yourself how many times does that number go into the whole number. So how many times does 5 go into 25? And we know for a fact 5 goes into 25 5 times. So what we can do is just rewrite the whole fraction as 1 times 5, because 5 goes into 25 5 times, and the top number stays the same. And now we can just say that 1 times 5 is equal to 5. Okay, and that's the answer. The other way you can look at that question is as follows. You can say that 1/5 times 25 is equal to 25 divided by 5, and we know 25 divided by 5 is equal to 5. So step 1, do 25 divided by 5, so divided with the bottom number, so that gives you 5. And then step 2, multiply the answer that you got here, which is the 5, and times it with the top number, which is 1, and that gives you 5. Okay, so there's two ways of doing it, and they both give you the same answer. Let's take a look at another one. So let's say you wanted to work out, let's move on to another page. Okay, so let's say I wanted to work out 3/4 of 28. So 3/4 of 28, how much is this? Well, again, you can use the first methods where you say to yourself how many times does 4 go into 28, and we know for a fact 4 goes into 28 7 times, because 7 times 4 is 28, and just leave the top number as it is, so times by 3, and we know 3 times 7 is equal to 21. The other method that I talked to you about was, okay, so we've got 3/4 of 28. So step 1, do 28 divided by 4. So that gives me 7. And step 2, do 7, which is the answer that we got here, multiply by the top number, which is 3. And that gives you 21. We are pretty much doing the same thing as what we've done before, okay, but it's just a different approach. Alright, so that's when you have the keyword of, it means that you have to multiply. Alright, let's move on to multiplying normal fractions, proper fractions. So let's move on to another page. Alright, so what I want to do is multiply two fractions. 2/3 times, let's say 3/4. How would you multiply 2/3 times 3/4? All you have to do is multiply the numerators together, so times them together, and those two together, yeah? So in our case, we end up with 2 times 3 is equal to 6, and 3 times 4 is equal to 12. Once you've got your fraction, you need to make sure that you simplify. And what I mean by simplifying is by asking yourself whether you can divide the top number, the numerator, and the bottom number, or the denominator, with a common number, yeah? So in our case, we we know for a fact we can divide the 6 and the 12 by 2 or by 3 if we like. If you can't figure out a number, always try to sort of start with 2 and see whether it works, and if it doesn't, then try to sort of go up other numbers and see whether you can find the right one. Okay, but in order to do that, you have to know your multiplication tables very well. Okay, so I know for a fact I can divide 6 and 12 by 3 for both of them. Okay, so let's divide 6 by 3 and the 12 by 3. 6 divided by 3 is equal to 2, and 12 divided by 3 is equal to 4. Here, I know for a fact 2 over 4, I can divide it even more. I can divide it by 2 again, and the 4, I can divide it by 2 again. I need to make sure I divide with the same number at the top and at the bottom. So 2 divided by 2 is equal to 1, and 4 divided by 2 is equal to 2. Now, I know some of you might say, well, you could have divided the 6 by 6 and the 12 by 6, and it's true. And you are allowed to do that. I could have divided the 6 by 6 and the 12 by 6, and I know for a fact 6 divided by 6 is equal to 1, and 12 divided by 6 is equal to 2, and you can see that we've got the same answer here. Okay? Let's take a look at how we could multiply. Let's take a half times, let's say 4/10. So again, I'm going to start multiplying the bottom number and the top numbers together. So 1 times 4 is equal to 4, and 2 times 10 is equal to 20. And when we get to that stage, we have to simplify. So the largest number that we're going to 4 and 20 here is going to be 2. So I'm going to divide by 2 at the top, divide by 2 at the bottom. So I end up with 2 over 10. Alright. Now, can I simplify this even more? Yes, I can. I can, well, divide the 2 with a 2 and the 10 with a 2. So I end up with 1 over 5. Some of you might say, well, you said the largest number that you can divide by here is 2, and you're right in saying, well, you made a mistake. Okay, here you could have divided by 4. If I do 4 divided by 4, so I've got 4 over 20, yeah, and I could have divided that by 4 and that one by 4, and that would have given me 4 divided by 4, which is equal to 1, and 20 divided by 4, which is equal to 5. If you spotted that, well done. Okay, so that's multiplying normal fractions. Let's move on to another example where we're going to multiply, fraction with a whole number. So again, let's start with something like 7 over 10, and I want to multiply this by 20. Yeah, so 7 over 10 times 20. Now there's few ways you can tackle that question. Let me show you one of them. Look at the top, the whole number, which is the 20, and ask yourself whether you can divide it with the bottom number, which is the 10 here. And we know for a fact 20 divided by 10, so 20 divided by 10, how much does that give you? It gives you 2. So you're left with 2 for those two. So finally you can just write it as 7 times 2, and that's equal to 14. Here's another method, another way you can do the same question. So we've got 7 over 10 times 20. Ask yourself whether you can simplify any of the numbers. Now usually it's the whole number and the denominator. Okay, so I'm talking about that one and that one, yeah? So I know for a fact I can divide the 10 by 10, and the 20 I can also divide it by 10 as well. So I can go ahead and divide that one by 10 and this one by 10. So I'm left with 7 over 1 times 20 divided by 10 is 2. And we know how to do those type of fractions. Just do 2 divided by 1, which is 2, then times it by the 7, so I'm left with 14. And you can see that it's the same answer. Yeah. A third way of doing it is by multiplying the 20 with the 7. So here we can do 7 times 20, and then we've got the divide by 10. So what you can do is do 20 times 7, which gives you 140, and then you've got the over the 10 which is left. So 140 divided by 10 leaves me with 14. I actually prefer the first method and the second method rather than the third one, because on the third one you can end up with large numbers, and if you don't know how to divide properly and you're not comfortable with divisions, then it can get quite difficult. Yeah, so I would suggest stick to the first method or the second method. All right, and finally we're going to look into multiplying mixed numbers. Okay, so how do you multiply mixed numbers? Alright, so let's say for instance you have 3.5 times 1.5. How would you multiply those two? Well, the first thing you're going to have to do is turn that into an improper fraction and that one into an improper fraction. If you haven't seen how to do, if you don't know how to do that, then you need to watch one of my previous videos on changing improper fractions and mixed numbers into one another. Yeah. So in this case, I'm going to try to change that into an improper fraction. So to do that, I'm going to do the 2 times the 3, and then I'm going to add plus 1. Okay, so 2 times 3 is equal to 6, plus 1 is equal to 7, and then this fraction is over 2, so I'll write it as over 2, times this one here. I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to do 2 times 1, which is 2, and then I'm going to add the plus 1. So 2 times 1, which is 2, plus 1 is equal to 3, and then the fraction here is out of 2, so I'm going to write it as over 2. And finally, I'm going to multiply the fractions, and we know how to deal with those two. We can just multiply the top numbers together. 7 times 3 is equal to 21, and 2 times 2 is equal to 4. When you get to that stage, you should always check whether you can simplify. Now here we know for a fact that it's an improper fraction, and what we should do is write it as a mixed number. 4 goes into 21 how many times? We know for a fact it goes 5 times. And the next one we're going to do is ask ourselves what's the remainder. Well, 4 times 5 is 20. To get to 21, we've got a remainder of 1, and the fraction here is out of 4. So there's my final answer. A bit more complicated, okay, but once you practice a few questions, you get the hang of it. Let's do one more. Let's say we had 2 and a third, and I want to multiply this by 2 and 3/5. So again, I'm going to change that into an improper fraction and change that one into an improper fraction, and this is what I end up with. 3 times 2 is equal to 6, plus 1 is equal to 7, and the fraction here is out of 3, so I'm going to write out of 3, times 5 times 2 is equal to 10, plus 3 is equal to 13, and here the fraction is out of 5. Okay, now we're going to multiply the top numbers and the bottom numbers together. So I'm going to do 3 times 5, which is equal to 15. And I'm going to do 7 times 13. If you don't know how to do that by head, just chunk it out. Do 7 times 10. We know that this is 10 and 3, isn't it? So 7 times 10, which is 70, and 7 times 3, which is 21, and 70 plus 21 is 91. Okay, and finally we're going to try to change that into a mixed number. So how many times does 15 go into 91? So here again you need to know your multiplication tables, and we know for a fact 15 goes into 91. Well, 15, 30, 45, 60, 60 plus another 15, which is 75, and plus another 15, which is 90. So it goes 5 times. And if you want to double check, you can do 5 times 10, which is 50, and 5 times 5, which is 25, and 50 plus 25 makes, sorry, it's supposed to be 6 times here, my mistake, my bad. Let's rub this off. It's not 5 times, it's 6 times. So 6 times 10 is 60, and 6 times 5 is 30, so 60 plus 30 makes 90, yeah? So it goes 6 times, so the remainder is 1, and is out of 15, okay? Those questions are slightly trickier, okay, but if you know how to multiply properly, then you should be okay. Alright, so always double check whether you've got the answer right. So how do you check whether this answer is right? What you could do is just multiply it out, okay? So do 15 times 6, that gives you 90, plus 1, that gives you 91, and the fraction is out of 15, so there you go. You've got the right answer. Well, I hope that helps. If you have any questions, and if you feel like I've gone over this too quickly, don't worry, you can always ask me some questions using the comment box, and if you like this video, don't forget to click the like button and share it with your friends. Okay, I'll see you in another video tutorial. Take care, bye.